from the request object. So I can say const ID is equal to request, then we use the params property, and then we use the ID. So whatever we called it right here, if you called this nuts, then you'd say params.nuts, all right? It makes no sense, so let's stick with ID. All right, so we have the ID. Let's just log this to the console to make sure it works. Console.log ID. All right, open up your console, and then let's try this out. Go back and click on one of these, and it's going to hang because we're not sending a response, but we can see the ID logged to the console. So we know that works. We've got the ID. Now we need to retrieve the document with this ID from the database. So we use the blog model, capital B, remember, then find by ID, and we pass in the ID right here. This is asynchronous, takes some time. We tack on the then method, and we get the result in a callback function. Now, what do we want to do with this result? Well, ultimately, we want to render a details page. So we need to create a details view shortly, but let's just set this up for now. Render, and it's going to be called details, this view, and we want to pass through the data that we get back. So the blog is what we'll call it, but you can call the property anything you want, and that is going to be equal to the result, because this result will be the single blog based on this ID. We also need to send in a title. Like every other route, we have a title, right? And the title for this page is going to be blog details, like so. So that's what we're doing in the then method. After we've got the blog, we send it into a view, which we're going to create in a second. First of all, let's catch any errors if there are any, and just log those to the console. All right, sorted. So now we need to create this details view right here. So let me go over to views and create a new file called details.ejs. And in here, I'm just going to paste some HTML code in, then explain it, so you don't have to watch me write it out from scratch. So we open up the HTML tag, we include the head partial, like we do in the other views. We include the nav partial. At the bottom, we include the footer one as well. This is the actual content we're concerned about. Now remember, inside here, we pass through the blog, which is the result, so the blog object. So we have access to that right here, and we have a div with a class of details and contents. Then we have this blog object, and we access the title property on the blog, which we have. Under that, we output the body property as well, inside a div and a paragraph tag. At the bottom, we've got this anchor tag right here, which is to delete a specific blog later on. So don't worry too much about this now. In fact, I'm going to delete this for now, so we're not worrying about it, and just save it like that. So we're just outputting the blog title and the blog body, right? Dead simple. So we're sending that details view back. Let's save this and see if it works. So let me come over here and go back and then click on one of these, Yoshi's Party, and it should work, but I think it's not doing. Okay, let's see if we get an error. Render is not defined. Okay, sorry, we need to say response.render right here. So save that and go back. Let's try this again. New blog 2, and we still get some kind of error. So let's have a look. Okay, not working just yet. Okay, so there was just a lag, I think, and it does actually work. So if we click on one of these again, yep, we see the title and the content. And if we click on a different one, we see the title and the content. Awesome. Now, I do also just want to add a couple of styles to this page right here. So let me just go to the styles inside the public folder, and I want to scroll to index styles, and I'm going to paste these things in right here. So just two things. So blogs A, which is this thing right here, the anchor tag surrounding each blog. What I'm doing with that is saying display that as blog, give it a bit of margin, padding left, and then a border left, which is crimson, like a red colour. And when we hover over those, the H3, which is the blog title, the colour of that text is going to be red as well. Just makes it look a bit better. So let's refresh this, and there we go, that's all working. So now we have our details page sorted.
Have you ever tried programming using Notepad++? It's so painful not having autocomplete, which was why when things like IntelliSense came out in VS Code and Visual Studio, along with other autocomplete tools, it really revolutionized programming and made programmers so much more productive. And now there's a whole new suite of tools coming out with AI-powered autocomplete, but are they going to be as revolutionary?
Alright then gang, so we are slowly getting there. The only route left to do is this one right here, which should be a delete request to delete a specific blog document. And again, we're going to have the same route structure as this one right here, where we use a route parameter. This time though, we need to send a delete request and handle that instead of a get request. So let's do that now. So then, we want to be able to delete blogs from the front end, and we could do this from a delete button or link on each blog details page. So if we click on a specific blog, maybe we see a delete icon somewhere, we click on that, that sends a delete request to the server, then we go out to the database from the server and delete the blog with that ID, all right? So before we do anything, we need some kind of button or something to click to send that request. So back in details, I'm just going to paste back in the anchor tag that we had right here. We give this a class of delete, and we give this a data attribute. Now, this is a special attribute inside HTML where we can basically add our own custom attributes. I've called this doc. So we say data hyphen, then whatever we want to call this attribute. And I've set this equal to a value. And this value is going to be the blog ID that we want to delete. Remember, we have access to the blog in the blog details page. So we're just getting the ID of that and storing it in this custom data attribute so that when we click on this, we can grab this data in some JavaScript down here, and using the fetch API, we're going to send a delete request to delete that document with that ID. So before we do anything, let's save this and look at it over here. Yep, looks absolutely pants. So let's just add a little bit of CSS. So in the detail styles, I'm going to paste in a couple, or rather 3 styles. So first of all, the details class, which is this thing right here, the div surrounding everything. I'm saying that is going to be position relative, and I need to do that because I'm positioning the delete anchor tag absolutely relative to this, okay? So we're saying we want this to be in the top right, and the border radius is going to be 50% of this thing. That curves the corners, so it looks a bit more like a circular kind of button. The padding is 8 pixels. Then delete hover, which is the hover effect. We're going to say the cursor is pointer, so the little hand, and give this some box shadow. So let me save this and preview again, and now we see this thing over here. All right. So we will make this maybe an